to know God's plan for your life, you ought to do what? Get in the Spirit and let the Lord minister to you. Oh, I'm so thankful for the Christ Universal Temple Ensemble. Let's love them. Let's say thank you to them. Let's love and bless and say thank you to our musicians. Yeah. Let's say thank you to our conductor, Mr. Martin Woods. Let's say thank you and we love you to our director, Mr. Monte Filon. And let's just say thank you for all of them one more time. On Pentecost Sunday, when we had our healing experience, one of the things that occurred for me on that Sunday, as oftentimes occurs, but particularly on this Sunday, I could not ignore the need and the pull of the collective. And that was sort of confirmed for me when many of you said after that service, we need to have more services like that. We need to have more healing services. And to everyone who said that, I think I said, no, that's not really the answer. Because the healer does not just show up on Pentecost Sunday. The healer is with you. The healer is within you. The healer is you. I can hear the words of Jesus saying, "Physician, heal thyself." And because we are a teaching ministry, the Spirit of the living God reminded me that what you ought to do, say ought to do. What you ought to do is teach and remind them of what they already know. And so we began this series a couple weeks ago. Reverend McDowell taught beautifully, as I understand it. He took us through the forgiveness process, and he helped us to understand that healing is the restoration to that original purity. Is that right? He reminded us that forgiveness is really giving up all hope for a better past. Yeah, it's almost like you missed that. It's almost like you missed that. Should I say that one more time? Yeah, forgiveness is giving up all hope for a better past. He took us through and talked to us about the exercise of faith and how we must use our spiritual qualities and allow those to be fused into the power of the Christ mind. He said to us that forgiveness is a process of giving up the false for the true, erasing sin and error from the mind and body. Does anybody remember that? And then on last week, he talked to us about understanding our spiritual wholeness, yes? He reminded us of our spiritual origin. He helped us to remember that we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe that is governed by spiritual law. And though we may be having human experiences, it is our responsibility to not let the burden of those experiences trick us into believing that we are less than what we are. I'd be willing to bet again $1 to a donut hole that he said there's no such thing as undemonstrated understanding. Did he say that last week? He says it every opportunity he gets. And so he took us through the first two stages of healing. And on today, what we'll talk about is this third stage of healing. We're going to talk about the art of affirmative prayer. What, why, and how. Is that all right? And so it's important for us to understand that Affirmative prayer is the act of claiming and declaring what is already true in the absolute realm. Affirmative prayer is the act of claiming and declaring what is already true in the absolute realm. But if you are like most people, and I know you're not like most people, but if on the off occasion that you are like most people, then you may not claim what you are not aware of, and you may not declare what you are not clear on. And so if affirmative prayer is our ability to claim and declare what is true, we might be reminded of what is true. That which is true is a byproduct of that which is truth. Yes? That which is true is a byproduct of that which is truth. And truth is a synonym for God. Truth is the absolute. Truth is that which accords itself with God as divine principle. Truth is that which has been, that which is right now, and that which eternally will be. It's said like this in the scriptures: Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. But it's easy to lose sight of the truth. Sometimes it does not take much for the lie to shake the very foundation of truth that you've been attempting to build consciousness on. Sometimes it doesn't take a whole lot for the illusion to make it seem like something is what it is not. And if you've had trouble before, when trouble shows up again, it makes the trouble all the more real. But the Christian metaphysician must be committed to looking at the truth, because it's only in the truth that you will find that which is true. The basic principle of truth is that the mind of each individual may be consciously unified with divine mind. And so the question is, and it's really almost the only question, what mind is in you? Is it the mind of fear? Is it the mind of worry? Is it the mind of dread? Is it the mind that continues to hold discordant and inconsistent error thoughts? Or is it the mind that gives you peace? Is it the mind that reminds you or remembers love? Is it the mind that points you away from the truth? If you're like me, sometimes you want to give people a piece of your mind. And so we have to determine whether or not the mind that we are using right now is the mind that's going to help us to get to where we ought to be. Remembering that we are spiritual beings. But just as we are spiritual beings, we are also psychosomatic beings. And that's a big word. It simply means that you have a mind and you also have a body. As a spiritual being who has a mind that also has a body, it's important to remember that your mind, or what's happening in your mind, oftentimes precedes what's happening in your body. And if what happens in your mind precedes what happens in your body, then it's not necessarily your body that has to be fixed, but rather it is your mind that must be fixed. Because if you get your mind right, your behind will follow. And so prayer is intended to help you get your mind right. Now, it's important to remember, especially in this context, that when we are talking about prayer, we're not talking about this exercise that many of us get into, where we find ourselves in a particular physical or mental posture wherein we decide to beg, beseech, and barter with God. I'm not talking about that kind of prayer. The God that I am aware of does not need to make a deal with you. And so there is no amount of bartering. You can't bring enough bottles of sugar to make God love you more. You can't trade enough stock to make God want to bless you more. There is no need to beg God, especially when God has put all of God's self in you. What you got to do is stop pretending like you're something else. You and I have the opportunity to not beg, but to know the truth. And when you understand the truth, you can claim what's rightfully yours. But if you don't know it's yours, if you don't understand that it's yours, if you've let people convince you that it doesn't belong to you, then you will not claim, nor will you declare the truth about yourself. And so prayer, as we're talking about it today, true prayer is not even about the asking of things, not even the best things. As we're talking about it today, prayer is the lifting up of consciousness. Say consciousness. Prayer is the lifting up of consciousness to the place where all of the best things already are. Let's take your bulletin. The first point on our bulletin, and let's take it together, says, treatment is the spiritual realization of God's truth for oneself or another. So treatment is the spiritual realization of God's truth for one's self or for another. Now, I want you to take your pen or your pencil, and I want you to circle the word realization. Because whenever we are talking about a realization, we are talking about the ability for the way that we think and the way that we feel to find alignment so that our thinking and our feeling might be able to consistently produce that which we have been holding in our thought and accepting as belief in our feeling. Are you with me? So now, if treatment is a spiritual realization, and treatment is an aspect of prayer, then prayer is not purely or simply a thinking exercise. Prayer is not just for you to change the way that you think. Prayer should also help you change the way that you feel. Because if Reverend Ike was right when he said that feeling gets the blessing, it does not matter how much you think if you still feel like you don't deserve to be better. If you still believe that for some reason you are not supposed to be what God created you to be, if you can't see and feel yourself as you truly are, then you can never be what you truly are. And so prayer should not just alter the way you think, but prayer should alter the way that you feel. It is, say it is. It is both the thinking and the feeling patterns that are producing stuff in your life. And if it's a pattern, then you are already subconsciously used to it. And so we wonder why things don't happen quickly. It's not happening quickly because you didn't make the pattern quickly. You took your time to make the pattern. There were many conversations that you had that you should never have. There are many words that you spoke that you should never speak. There are many thoughts that you held that you got no business holding. There are many times that you entertained all manner of foolishness that you know for somebody like you, you got no business entertaining. And so, our thinking and our feeling are creating patterns, and the patterns express themselves one way or another. Listen, I've got news for you. The things that you plant in your soul, they seek manifestation in your life. So, when we think about it rationally, we can't figure out why this is happening to us. I'm a good person. I go to church, I take classes, I take my neighbor's garbage out. I show up at work on time most of the time. Is that you? You can tell when the Spirit of the Lord convicts them. They either laugh or they cry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put your business in the street. But we have to allow prayer to transform both our thinking and our feeling nature. Mm-hmm. So while in prayer our thinking nature is involved, it's vital that we feel what is true. Mm-hmm. See, most of us are adept at thinking what is true. Many of us don't do so hot with feeling what is true. Like, let me give you a for instance. You've been in class or you've been in service, and the minister or the teacher or whoever is before you says something, and then you feel something in your soul that says, no, that just can't be. Based upon what's happening in my life, that can't be. And if you don't recognize that your feeling nature is indicating to you that you are not resonating with truth, then the truth that's presented to you can't be the truth that you manifest. We're good? Let's keep moving. Let's take this second statement together. A treatment is a prayer of faith and understanding for healing, harmony, wisdom, prosperity, or any other good that people may desire. Now, when we are talking about prayer, prayer is intended to help us develop consciousness. Prayer is intended to help us develop consciousness. Consciousness is the sum total of everything that you think, feel, sense, are aware of. You still with me? So if prayer is intended to help you develop consciousness, it's important that you be consistent and intentional about developing consciousness through prayer. Now, every thought, we're getting somewhere. Every thought is a brick in the house that you build toward your demonstration. So every thought that you hold is a brick in your consciousness house or your house of consciousness. You with me? And so if you are holding thoughts that are inconsistent with what you desire, then you can expect that your demonstrations will be consistent, yes? But for those of us who hold good thought, and for those of us who identify those things that are pure and just and loving and of good report, for those of us who think on those things, I want to challenge and encourage you to do that more consistently. Because here is the opportunity that we're faced with. In order to get your breakthrough, you have to persist in prayer. Many of us are hoping that we can go into our closet just once and then something will miraculously shift. But I've got news for you. The thing that's holding that condition in your life is not going away easy. And if you think you can say one affirmation to it and take one class and it's gonna go, you got another thing coming. What you have to do is persist and make sure that you stay on that high watch until that thing breaks loose. If you want your healing, you've got to be diligent and committed in it. If you want your breakthrough, you've got to keep on striving and keep on fighting, keep on grabbing and keep on pulling, and don't let the what's showing up fool you into believing that you can't have better, you can't have more, you can't rise up from where you are right now, because the consciousness that created will hold on to it. It's up to you to be dedicated and determined in how it is you press forward to build your consciousness. It's not anybody else's responsibility to build your house. Your doctors will do the best that they can. Your agents will do the best that they can. but they're all the byproduct of your consciousness. Everybody who shows up in your life shows up as a byproduct of your consciousness. So if you want the breakthrough, if you want the healing that they say is possible, you got to do just a few things. Are you with me? Consistently, say consistently. Consistently set aside portions of your day for prayer. Consistently set aside portion of your day for prayer. Now, I know you got time for certain soap operas. And when Empire comes back on, I know you're going to have time for Empire. For those of you who like power, I know you make time for power. For those of you who like Game of Thrones, I know you make time for Game of Thrones. Yeah, I'm coming down your street, just hold tight. For those of you who make time for How to Get Away with Murder, I know you make time for it. For the gladiators in the building, I know you make time for that, but I got news for you. None of that is going to facilitate your breakthrough. Olivia Pope could never be your fixer. You better figure out how to connect to the fixer within your soul so that while she's getting her money, you can be getting yours. You have to consistently and persistently press on toward the mark of the high call that represents your overcoming. And you have to do it day in and day out. If it means that much to you, you have to persist in that thing. Now, I'm not suggesting that anything is wrong with those other things. I'm just saying you have to determine for yourself, is it more important than your healing? Only you can answer that. I'm not going to answer it for you. You have to determine whether or not and how much time you will set aside for prayer, because your prayer time is what will shift your consciousness. Are you still with me? In his letter to the church in Thessalonica, Paul encourages the Thessalonians to pray without ceasing. He said, in everything, give thanks. Now, I had a problem with him when I first read that. Because, Paul, you just can't possibly know what I'm going through. You say give thanks in everything? You mean like every... Because when I try to look at everything and parse through it, it does not seem to leave out anything. So he's trying to tell me to give thanks in everything, in my trouble, in the pain, in the heartache, in the relationship that no longer works, in the bank account that keeps getting lower and lower. In everything, give thanks. Is he out of his cotton-picking mind? But if you understand, say understand. If you understand that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose, then you understand that that which you draw to you by right of consciousness, even though it shows up a certain kind of way, you got so much power you can turn your problem into your blessing. You are so bad that you're so good that you can turn your trouble into a demonstration in truth. You're so good with yours that you can take broken relationships and find healing, not just for you, but for your person that you're divorcing. I believe this so much that I want you to be well too on the other side of our breakup. Not half, but whole. I told you I was coming down your street. Pray without ceasing. And that can be challenging in a day and time when we want instant gratification and immediate access. But we have to be willing and committed to praying until the walls of resistance are broken down and the healing currents rush through. We have to pray with confidence and not let up until the breakthrough shows up. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this. I'm not asking you to do anything that you're not capable of doing. But here is what I appreciate about Jesus. Anytime he was confronted with a healing experience, he was always saying to people, do this, and it was the very thing that they were not supposed to be able to do. And so you can refuse, say refuse. You can refuse to let thoughts of worry and thoughts of anxiety and distractions act out in your mind. You can refuse these things prominence in your life, world, and affairs. If you do that, you can gradually begin to establish this consciousness of quietness. You can establish this consciousness of quietness. You can establish this consciousness of quietness where it says, in quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. But you have to be able to close the distractions out. On yesterday, Reverend Cook talked about this a little bit. When Jesus was on his way and the woman with the issue reached out to touch him, he was actually on his way to one of the leaders of the synagogue's house. And as he's on his way to the house, he has the experience with this young lady, but that's not his purpose. His purpose is to go to the house. But when he gets to the house, something interesting is happening. When he gets to the house, they're playing the flute. When he gets to the house, there's a bunch of commotion. When he gets to the house, there's crying because they are already, good Lord, they're already having her funeral. They already got the dirt on the casket. They already have counted her out. They already know that the story is over. They already know that the buzzer has gone off. They already know that the last minutes of the last quarter have gone off the clock. They have already counted her out, but Jesus shows up. And when Jesus hits the scene, the first thing that he says is, you with that flute, and you all with that noise, and you all with that crying, get out. Because when it's time for you to make your breakthrough, you don't need a whole bunch of silly people around you making noise about what can or cannot be. When it's time for you to come up, you don't need people who don't believe trying to keep you down. Somebody has already got you buried. Somebody has already lied about you. Somebody has already in their little mind determined that your dream can't come true. But I'm here to tell you that you don't let anybody's little limitations on their soul limit what God can do to you, through you, and for you. When you pray, you build the consciousness where you begin to rely on God and God alone. And so you gotta put that nonsense out. Stop letting flute players amuse you and entertain you and put you to sleep and you lose sight of your dreams. Stop letting what they say on the news disturb the calm peace of your soul. 1,000 might fall by my left and 10,000 by my right. Everybody around might be getting it, but it shall not touch me. Why? Because I know how to pray. I'm going to pray until this thing breaks loose. I'm going to pray until it builds up. I'm going to pray until it works, because it works if you work it. Oh no. Oh no, you're not going to tell me when to die. Oh no. What you don't realize is I know how to pray. You can pray your children out of jail. I prayed myself out of jail. Watch out now. Don't play with me. I know it works. I knew it worked before I even knew what it was. Tell me. I don't care what they said about what you got. Yeah, you got it, now get rid of it. Yeah, they say they got time for you. I got my own time. Here's my watch. Those of us who own businesses, there are people all over this world who want your product. Get busy and get it to them. There ain't no shortage of people. People everywhere. You just got to give them something they want. But you got to pray. You got to know how to pray. You got to know how to pray. You got to know how to pray. It's all right to contact and get in touch with somebody who knows how to pray, but you sure better figure how to get it for yourself. Because one day, they're going to be too busy to pray for you. They love you just fine. You better know how to get it for yourself. This is a do-it-yourself Christianity. Jesus gave you the example, now get to work. Pray until something happens. And stop praying hoping somebody else will change. Oh, Lord, just fix her. Oh, Lord, just fix him, Lord. If you'll just show him, he'll get better. But you can only see what's in you. And when you pray, watch out for the storm. Because we pray hoping that God will fix something out there. But when you pray, it's not something out there that starts shaking, it's something inside here that starts moving. And so you're trying to figure out, how come the foundation is so wobbly? How come I can't find anything firm? How come the stuff I used to be able to count on, I can't count on no more? It's because you've been praying. And God's got a new thing for you. God's got a new wine for you. God's got a new opportunity for you. God's got a new blessing for you. It's got your name on it, but you got to pray in order to claim it. Our bulletin says the objective of prayer is to raise. 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 The objective of prayer is to raise the consciousness, right? No, don't move from consciousness. Don't move from there yet. That's the problem. We run too fast from consciousness. You trying to figure out why you can't get it, it's because you ain't got the consciousness for it. Oh man, you put that in your notes, tweet that. The right one ain't showing up because you don't have the consciousness for them. I don't mean to say it in a way that sounds mean. I just want you to not leave here thinking that you can have something you don't have the consciousness for. You only have the mental energy to attract and magnetize that which is already in you. So you can't attract something that you don't have the mental equivalent for. You need the consciousness. Prayer helps you develop God consciousness. You want to be more like God? Spend more time praying. It's already in you. Now take the covers off. Stop hiding. Stop playing. Come on out of the closet, as my teacher would say. Stop being afraid to be who you are and know what you got. You don't have to hide from anybody about anything. They got plenty to work on themselves. Let's get on out of here, Tay. Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther. He said, pray as if everything depended on God, and then work as if everything depends upon you. Our founder said it works if you work it. But the pivotal point, this is it right here, the pivotal point around which spirit creates. The pivotal point around which spirit creates is the point of consciousness. If through your prayer life, now I notice I didn't say prayer time, I said prayer life, meaning a consistent, persistent commitment to prayer. In your prayer life, what you will find is that God is ready to move through you in ways that you knew not of. But you have to have the consciousness for what God is preparing to do. God does not waste any of the blessing if you don't have the consciousness for it. So what you want to get busy doing is praying to build the consciousness. You ain't got time to talk about what nobody else is doing. You got to pray to build consciousness. You don't have time to worry about what somebody else saying. You got to pray to build consciousness. You don't have time to be looking out the window wishing that you had what they got. You got to spend your time praying to build the consciousness. And if you build it, they will come. Your healing will come. Your peace will come. Your joy will come. Your happiness will come. Your love will come. Every good thing that you desire, if you build the consciousness for it, will come. Get busy working. God bless you.